Hello. All right, so let's see. What week is it? I don't even know what week it is. Um, it is. It is week 18. So 18th book. Haha. And it is this one. Um, What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Now, this is not a book I would normally have read or normally chosen for um, this sort of series, except what I've been doing is I've been just reading through whatever books have not been moved out of my car yet. I've been trying to focus on those, and this is one that's in my car. Um, I bought this for $5 at Barnes and Noble. It was one of those, buy a drink, buy anything at the cafe, get a book for $5. This is the $5 book, and T. Kingfisher. She's mostly known for writing young adult stuff and um, some horror. And I had no idea who she was when I bought this book. Um, all right, so What Moves the Dead? This is basically, if you're familiar with The Call of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, it's a little short story where a family in a dilapidated old house, um, the last members of the family die from some kind of wasting kind of disease, and then the house itself falls into the swamp. Okay, well, in a author's note at the end of this book, uh, uh, Kingfisher talks about how um, she had reread The Fall of the House of Usher recently and realized that there was some gaps in the story that, that Poe didn't quite make a connection between the wasting disease and the fungus that was in the short story and in the lands around the house. So she decided that she would explore this a little bit. She thought there was some room there for some exploration. And so we have this book. And what she's done here is she's taken the basic outlines of uh, the Fall of the House of Usher, where an old family in a big palatial uh, um, house out in a swamp. Is, the brother Roderick and the sister. Um, what is the sister's name? Madeline. The sister Madeline are both um, uh, dying, but the sister is dying more obviously and more directly than the brother is. Uh, she look she so what she does is, okay. The story starts with a character who is riding a horse back to the house of Usher. Well, to the house of Usher. They've actually never been there before, and um, they're looking at the wasted landscape, and they stop and they see there's a big mushroom, and they're going to investigate the mushroom, and some old lady comes up and explains to this person that mushrooms are dangerous in this area. They want to leave it alone. And then she pokes it with the old lady pokes it with a stick, and it lets off this foul odor. And that's demonstration that the fungi here are not to be messed with. This old lady is like a woman who is just walking around studying the mushrooms and the fungi in the area. And this has taken place 1899, 1900, something like that, right around the turn of the century. And it's in a slightly fictional universe, which takes you by surprise at first. By which I mean that the main character here, the I character, comes from a country that doesn't exist. in our world. And it's a country that apparently has been involved in several wars and has never been good at war. But nonetheless, over time has developed this tradition of allowing women to fight, but not as women. They have to reclassify their gender as something else because soldiers are not classified as a male-female gender in this society, but as a different gender. Now, I'm not exactly sure why the author has chosen to introduce this complex social background. I don't know if this is an ongoing universe that she writes in. I don't know if there are other adventures set in this reality. I don't know how all that works. It seems a little bit cumbersome for its use in this story, which I'll get to the only reason why I think it is has any kind of purpose in the story other than as just some sort of, incidental sideline detail. Because the story, on the surface of it, has absolutely nothing to do with gender or pronouns or gendering of things or any of that. And and the main character doesn't seem to have any particular this, that, or other sexual proclivities that would matter or become some sort of political hot button issue or anything like that. So I'm not sure why it's there, other than perhaps to explore it, except for one moment later on. So the main character gets there, and they discover that Roderick, the friend from the previous war, they'd served together. He is pale and wasting away, but he's nothing compared to his sister Madeline, who is basically just a ghost of herself. And, there's lots of details that go on about, what they think is going on and this kind of thing. And they stay up drinking one night, some really nasty alcohol, kind of like some sort of ouzo or Jägermeister kind of nastiness. Liverit or something they call it. It's just nastiness. Um, to her credit, Kingfisher seems to be having fun with this. But what she eventually details here is that there's something living in the tarn, the lake next to the house, which has been mentioned many times, having this nasty, nasty, nasty brackish water. And something is living in there, and it is fungal, and it's infecting everything around it. They're rabbits, hares, like very specifically hares, not rabbits, hares that just don't act like normal hares. They don't run away. They just stare at you, and then when they move, they kind of crawl more than hop. Um, they shoot one, and it doesn't exactly die, and they also kill some fish, and when they gut the fish, weird crap comes out of the fish, and what they find is that this fungus gets into the body of an organism, and it takes over. And as it turns out, the hares are dead. They're being animated by this fungi. The fish is dead, is being animated by this fungi. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't take long to not put the connect the dots. So are Madeline and Roderick. They are sick with this fungus thing. And in fact, we find out towards the denouement what happens is Madeline gets up at night and wanders around and has a couple weird moments and things like that. And, a couple of spooky moments. And then they put her in the crypt downstairs, but she comes out of the crypt and comes back upstairs. And when, well, the main character also goes and sees the body and sees that her neck has been broken, so she's definitely dead, but she comes back to life, kind of. So what we have here is kind of a fungal induced zombie thing going on. And they destroy the house. They burn it, and fire, excuse me, apparently really kills this stuff. So it's dead after that. So it's a good read. Yeah, it's decent. But I do have a problem, which is Kingfisher has taken a story that had a nice, spooky, gothic atmosphere and sort of psychologically played with you because you weren't really sure why things are going like they were. Poe, she's right. Poe left a huge gaping hole in this story. He left no real explanation for what was going on. What happened in the original story is Madeline's put down in the crypt, and the main character, who again is a person who comes here on horseback, an old friend of Roderick's, they're sitting upstairs, and Madeline comes back upstairs and spooks them. And what's happened there is they've accidentally thought she was dead when she wasn't. And she's come back upstairs, and then she dies, and Roderick dies from fright. So that's the original story. But this story, she's taken it a little bit further. But what she's done in our sort of 21st century ways is she's taken all the mystery out of it. We know exactly why this happens. This fungus invades Madeline. This fungus invades Roderick. It doesn't invade the main character or the other characters in the book because they don't get their water from the tarn. They get their water from a well. We're not 100% sure how Madeline first got this fungus. We're given a couple of possibilities, but the fact of the matter is she's been dead for over a month anyway, and the fungus has been basically animating her body and learning to speak and this kind of, I don't. There's nothing wrong with this, but to me, there's nothing right with it either. It's just kind of there. It's an okay book. If you like this kind of thing, she does write other things, but I think she's only got I think she actually does have one other story in this universe, as a matter of fact. I said earlier, I didn't think she did. Yes, she does. She has one other, I think, in this universe. And that gets me back to the pronoun game. Why does she play the pronoun game? Well, I don't know exactly. But there is one thing that she says, the main character says that back in their home country, they never would refer to a pre-sexual child, a child, basically, a child, as he or she, that would seem inappropriate because he or she would always be someone who would be sexually available kind of person, or sexually mature, I suppose. And children, obviously, of course, are not. And anyone who did refer to children that way would be looked at with suspicion as if they were a predator. And so when Madeline is speaking from the point for the tarn, for the thing in the tarn, she basically uses the word for a child. And that's the only reason I can see that this pronoun game even matters in this book, is that it allows the main character, the author, to have the characters make it very clear that the creature they're dealing with is not intended to be mature or understood as mature. It is a child. It is kind of a new life form. So yeah, there's a Frankenstein aspect to this, as this is a new creature being brought into the world. There is a Lovecraftian kind of, the fungus, the thing, and the tarn kind of, you can almost see this as a Lovecraftian kind of approach, so it loses most of its Poe-specific focus, because Poe is so focused on that sort of very ornamental Victorian language and that sort of florid kind of, Gothic atmosphere. It loses some of that, but gains from these other influences that have happened since. Like I said, I don't want to say it's bad. It's not bad. It was a fairly gripping read, too. So, anyway, that is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher.